Have you ever looked at a word for so long that you're convinced you misspelled it? You're convinced that something about it just looks a little off. Well, that can happen to your website too. When you're staring at the screen day after day, creating a new design or a new layout concept or an entirely new website, things can start to look a little bit funny. And that's one of the many reasons that it's incredibly important to test your website before you launch it. Very recently, I got to do a real-life user experience test at the Portland airport, and I've got some key takeaways from this experience that can help you make sure your website is ready for launch. Welcome to Think Inside the Square, a podcast full of tips and tricks to help you create a website that you're proud of. I'm your host, Becca Harpain, Squarespace expert and educator and creator of InsideTheSquare.co. In this episode, I'm sharing 3 important things that you need to think about before you do your next user experience. These tips will help you confidently launch your new content. For a transcript of this episode, along with the links to any resources mentioned, visit InsideTheSquare.co/podcast. The term Squarespace is a trademark of Squarespace Incorporated. This content is not affiliated with Squarespace Incorporated. Portland International Airport has been working on a new terminal for years. Literally years, and over the weekend, they asked for a few hundred volunteers to spend a couple hours testing it. I was one of those volunteers, and trust me, this does have to do with your website. Stick with me here. I showed up on a Saturday, and after waiting in the first of many lines that day, I was handed a script. My job was to be Hunter Gleason, a Southwest traveler who needed to speak with an agent. I was led into the new terminal, and I had to find my way to the counter. Leaning into the role, I looked at the agent across from me at the counter and I said, "My name is Hunter and I really need to speak with someone and I have no idea what this is about." We both chuckled about it. They checked out my script and they gave me a boarding pass and I was on my way to test the TSA line. I've got more to this story, but this right here is your first takeaway for your own user experience testing. I had a script, a specific job that I needed to do, and you should give one to the people that are testing your website for you. Task-oriented testing is so much more effective. If you send someone to your new website and say, "Hey, check this out, what do you think?" you're not going to get the kind of quality feedback that you need. Here are a few ideas for your own user experience test. Ask someone to sign up for a specific service on your website. Send them to the homepage and see if they know exactly what to do. Have them record their screen while they do it. Another thing that you can ask them to do is place an order of a very specific item. If you have a blog, give someone the task to find the answer to a specific question that a post in your blog will answer. And make it fun. Give them a name, a goal, enough direction that they know where to start and see where they end up. After I left the Southwest counter and I made my way to TSA, I was standing in a long line, but it was still kind of interesting. The Portland airport did a really good job of redesigning this terminal so that it was still pretty entertaining to see what was happening. There were big screens going on with different animated videos, but I very quickly realized that those videos were on a loop. There really wasn't enough to keep it interesting, so that was a bit of a bummer. Luckily, the line didn't last too long and I made it all the way through TSA, and that is when the trouble started. Things got messy, and they got messy fast. They had created a new design on the part of the TSA process where you take off your backpack or your purse and your shoes and you send them through the security line. Unfortunately, the way that they had designed this was around curves. It seemed like a good idea. I'm sure it was great on paper. I'm sure it was great in a board meeting. They had different areas where you could hop into the open window, grab a bin from their automated system, and keep the ball rolling. Unfortunately, not everyone would finish this process at the same time, and very quickly, almost all of us had no idea who was next in line. Everyone wasn't sure if it was their turn, if they should go to the open window or wait for the one right in front of them. The lines were not funneled into the right place. And when you're doing this on paper, I'm sure it looked great. If everything is processed at once, the data would look amazing. But when you put real people in that scenario, it was very, very confusing. Now, here's the kicker and the part that has to do with your website testing. I did this test on August 3rd. The new terminal opens on August 15th. That is not enough time to fix the problem, my friend. That is not enough time at all. So let this be your key takeaway. When you're doing testing on your website, you need to make sure that you've got enough time to fix it before you launch it to the world. Make sure that you set your user experience testing at least a few weeks out before your launch. And to that point, test it before you're ready. You might be super compelled to make sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, but it's okay to share a link before it's absolutely perfect. Maybe there will be a few placeholder images. Maybe the product that you want someone to test purchasing isn't quite ready to go yet. That's okay. Have the users test the experience so you have time to adapt your design to fit their needs. So the first key takeaway is to give someone an actionable thing to do. Give them a specific goal on your website. The second takeaway is to make sure that you do your test with enough time to correct any of the problems that people encounter. And the third takeaway that I want you to learn from this is what I call the 2-degree test. This is how you find the right people to test your website. Obviously, for the Portland airport, that was easy. They've got a ton of locals here who want to experience the airport. We've had years of anticipation, and all of us were eager to see what the new terminal looked like. Finding people to take the test was not the difficult part. But for you, as the small business owner, the website designer, the website creator, where do you find people to test your website? I was listening to a podcast recently who recommended something that I'm going to recommend to you, and that is the 2-degree test. Now, the first time I built a website, honestly, the first 3 times I built websites, I would send out links to all of my friends, and I would send a link to my mom, and I would have everyone look at this website and say, hey, tell me what you think. First off, that's an open-ended question, and I really didn't get any helpful information from that user experience test. It wasn't a task-oriented test, which was your first takeaway from this episode. But I was also contacting people who wanted to support me, who wanted to give me good feedback. And while that's really nice for my self-esteem, that's really not that helpful for getting quality feedback about the content you're creating. So I want to encourage you to send that link and those specific tasks to your friends so they can send it to their friends. 2 degrees of connection is what you're going for here. Now, hopefully, you've got a friend group of nice people who are willing to help you out. If you have to, offer to send them a $5 Starbucks gift card or something you can do to incentivize them to participate in the test. But the goal here is that you want people who aren't on your side to take a look at what you've created. So when you're doing your next user experience test, here's what you're going to do. You're going to set up at least 5 specific tasks that you want people to do on this new website experience. You are going to reach out to your friends and have them send that task to their friend. Have that person do the actual goal-oriented task and record their screen while they're doing it. And last but not least, you're going to do this early. If your launch date is on the 1st of the month, I want you to run this test on the 10th of the month beforehand, okay? Give yourself 20 days to catch up. Maybe that's a little too much time, but you're with me on this one. Test early, test with people that don't know you, and make sure you have task-oriented tests. How many times did I say test in this episode? Doesn't matter. I know it was a lot. But anyway, we made it through the recap, my friend. And I hope that you're inspired to create a more constructive feedback experience the next time you're ready to release new content on your website. Now, you might be curious as to when I recommend doing this user experience testing. And the truth is, I recommend doing it as often as you're creating a new layout experience. You might not need to do this for every single blog post you create. But if you've got a new sales page, or of course, a brand new website, you're going to want people to test the experience and give you feedback. And again, I strongly recommend that you ask them to record their screen. It's very easy to do on a lot of mobile devices. That's a feature built right into there. And I'll include some links in the show notes that you can send to people to give them information on how to record their screen for free so they can send you that feedback. All right, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Think Inside the Square. I truly hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to subscribe to my podcast. I post a brand new episode every Thursday, and I'd love to have you listen to the next one. And check out some of the archives available at insidethesquare.co/podcast. Thanks again for tuning in, and most importantly, have fun with your Squarespace website. Bye for now.